The Advent is the arrival of Atlundia's main playable races, those who both drive and record the world's history. For millennia before the Advent, Atlundia was inhabited by dragons, fae, giants, dinosaurs, and other ancient creatures. Strange travelers would visit on occasion, but most would not stay for long. None can be certain how old the world is, but it's old enough that mountains rose, winds blew, oceans filled, and forests grew. This video describes how the 7 main playable races, the Advent races, came to Atlundia and brought with them life, death, war, and peace, beginning in the Primal Era. The dwarves were carved from mountain stone by the creator entity. When the Advent arrived, the entity had left many unfinished dwarven statues atop a mountain coursing with primal energy. Those dwarves who did awaken from stone took instinctively to finishing these statues of their kin, and meticulously carved many more. After a great many dwarves were brought to life, the humming energy of the mountain was spent, and what statues remained stood still. The first dwarves arranged themselves into 9 clans by the metals and minerals they exemplified. The gold, lead, tin, and zinc clans dwell nearer the surface as the mountain dwarves. The copper, iron, silver, and wolfram clans dwell deeper within the mountain as the cavern dwarves. The quartz clan is evenly divided among the two. High in the mountains, the early dwarves encounter giants. They do not immediately become enemies, but their history is entangled together ever since. The elves arrive in Atlundia through their dreams, and it's the only time they were ever truly asleep. In the far west live the lore elves, with golden skin and golden hair. In the silent frozen north are the winter elves, pale and cold as the stars. Asleep in the 1st century, they dream of the world, and in those dreams, the world takes shape. They become deeply connected to it, and as one with it. They dream of their kin across the continent and of a dreadful danger to the south. Their dreams rise to a meditative trance from which they finally wake to a world they know and love. For years, the lore elves revel with fae in their beautiful forests, while the winter elves master the serene tundras and creatures therein. In time, their first explorers set out to find each other and to unmask the dangers that creep at the edge of their realms. The Foliv are a bestial folk and have been in Atlundia since long before the Advent. But there's no memory of such times, for they were left to sleep for years untold in a secluded corner of the world. When the Advent came, they finally woke under the shade of a tropical forest. The Foliv are curious, pleasant, and social. Together they explore the jungles and savannas of their homeland, learning the ways of plant and animal life. They linger at rivers to stay cool and catch fish, and gather around fires to tell stories. Since the beginning, they establish a tradition of sharing wisdom through tales, song, and even dance. Though formed of many groups, they behave as if they are of one great tribe, moving freely from one family to the next. The Foliv spend their early years leisurely, but for the occasional assault of predatory animals and dinosaurs. The gnomes were planted as seeds by the entity. They grew among the ferns under the watchful eye of brass and copper dragons. The Advent came and went, yet they stayed rooted for 4 happy decades, bathing in the sun and waving in the breeze. In year 37 of the Primal Era, many opened their eyes to their first sunrise, and in 38, all were toppled by a powerful storm. They found their feet and used them to dance and sing with the animals, dragons, and fae, making music and art out of all that was at hand. They turned their feet in all directions to explore, seeking the knowledge of every plant, animal, river, and rock. Half of their number remained in the forest, the fern gnomes, while half climbed the mountains to become the rock gnomes, but ever they remained close cousins. They did all things with joy and were a joy to the world around them. Wild goblins of all sizes emerge from hiding in the depths of the forest world. From under mushrooms crawl tiny goblins, and enormous boulders began to wander, having been goblins all along. From nowhere they came, and to nowhere they go, blissfully lost in a dark, ancient place. The goblins are furtive, driven by hunger and fear, yet fatally curious. They band together and stumble through friendships and rivalries, squabbling over rocks and flowers and bones and birds. Canaan, the great entertainer, is among them, and they develop a love of pranks, thievery, and mischief that often surpasses comedy and becomes cruelty. The nights of the forest world are filled with the cackling of goblins and the yelps of their victims. Relentlessly, they root out the deepest secrets of the forest and the world, leaving no stone unturned, regardless of their peril. In the midst of spring, on the first day of the first year, humans and halflings awaken in the Great Heart Forest. They band together for safety, wandering through the day and huddling together in the darkness of night. They build shelters and light fires to ward away predators, spirits, and the elements. In time, they flourish, and whether human or halfling, raise their children together as a community. Avalura visits them often, teaching them of the seasons, years, and stars. She guides their earliest traditions and names them the Rithwar, which means the people who share. Circa year 30 of the Primal Era brings the rise of their malevolent adversaries, cruel, misshapen cannibals called the Twisted, who mercilessly prey upon them. In a dense, sprawling jungle, an immense pit of mud rises to the surface, and from it the orcs crawl forth. They are born to Atlundia across the astral sea on an ancient river of mud called the Marug. Their gods send them into the world, clawing, suffocating, and devouring each other, leaving only the strongest to survive. For a century, the Marug bears orcs to Atlundia before it finally diverts and the mud pits dry up. Orcs rally to great champions and form loose tribes, perpetually testing each other and striking at any sign of weakness. They tear through the jungle, a blight upon the land and the many enemies they find. At the time of the Advent, the two moons, Haka and Orano, appear in the night sky, an extraordinary omen to Atlundia's ancient denizens. The history of the Primal Era begins, recorded in 7 accounts by the 7 Advent races. In future videos, I'll expand upon the history of each of these races. Thanks for watching, and we'll see ya.